Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell with News and Views on My dog decided she wanted to start howling. Thank you. Thank you, Shiloh. Thank you. Thank you, Shiloh. She heard a siren off in the distance just as we got started. Thank you, sweetie. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for letting me know that you heard a siren. Now go lay down, okay? Go lay down. Anyway, that's good. She did that once before, folks, when we were doing a vid chat. But anyway, there's lots going on, and when I've been getting ready to do this news and views for the last 3 hours, and the reason it took me so long was I was debating between what I am doing it on and another story about what's going on in German politics, and my third choice was to rant about the behavior of certain ladies sitting behind the president during his State of the Union speech. But I figured everybody is already talking about that or ranting about it in one way, shape, or form. So it was down to either talking about what's going on in some German state elections vis-a-vis Chancellor and Merkel, or what's going on in American state houses. So anyway, I decided to do a little talk about what I think may be going on in American state houses, because now it's a pattern that, if you look at it whole, is very clear. So I'm using an article today, quite a few paragraphs from an article that I will be linking that appeared at RT, Russia Today. The article's titled "Florida House Panel to Debate Bill Criminalizing Sex Change Surgeries and Puberty Blockers for Kids as 5 other states consider bans." And this is a story from 4 days ago, February 2nd. So it's a fairly recent story that appeared on RT, and I'm going to read several paragraphs. I'm only going to be skipping about 3 paragraphs in this story, and then tell you what I think is possibly behind it, because I think this story is best viewed in conjunction with some other stories. And the reason I mentioned talking about my options, that I was considering a rant on the behavior of certain ladies sitting behind the president during the State of the Union speech, is that I think, in a certain sense, this story is related to other things going on in the background. So here we go. This is from the article. Quote, "A bill that could make it a felony to perform sex change surgeries on minors, as well as inject them with drugs to delay puberty, is set to go before a Florida House subcommittee next week as more states consider similar motions." So in other words, for those of you overseas, this is a bill in the American state of Florida, not for the whole country. All right, just Florida. "The Vulnerable Child Protection Act will be on the agenda of the Florida House Quality Subcommittee when it meets on Monday. The bill is sponsored by Republican State Representative Anthony Sabatini, who has long opposed the practice that permits a doctor to treat underage patients suffering from gender dysphoria with sex change surgery and medicine that slows the onset of puberty, providing their parents approve of the procedure. When he filed the bill back in January, the lawmaker compared sex change treatment to maiming, tweeting that no parent should be allowed to sterilize or permanently disfigure a child. The proposed law has drawn swift pushback from Democrats, arguing that the bill outlaws life-saving health care treatment for teenagers who have not yet come of age. Critics of the ban argue that children who cannot receive such treatment at are higher risk of depression and suicide. While the Florida bill still has many hoops to go through before it can become a law, a similar bill has already cleared the House of Representatives in South Dakota, which happens to be my home state. Approved on Wednesday, it bans doctors from prescribing puberty blockers for anyone under 16, as well as outlawing sex reassignment surgery for minors. I'm taking it to mean. The bill, which has still to receive the green light from the state's Senate, sparked major backlash among liberals and LGBTQ advocacy groups. The Human Rights Campaign, the largest LGBTQ lobbying and advocacy group in the United States, eviscerated the motion, accusing the bill's sponsor, Representative Fred Deutsch, of spreading misinformation and using vicious, harmful rhetoric while doing so. And here it comes. This is the part that I think is the important part. A host of similar bills are at different stages of progress in at least 4 other U.S. states. The list includes Colorado, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Missouri, where it would not only penalize doctors, but also label parents who give the nod for sex-altering treatment as child abusers. So those 4 states, Colorado, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Missouri, and then you add South Dakota and Florida, you've got 6 states considering this type of measure. Now, what do I think all of this means? And this is where I think you have to look at the bigger picture. And I'm going back to the State of the Union address because you saw there something that has never happened in American history, where a Speaker of the House has torn up an official government document, namely the speech itself, in front of everybody in the House and in front of the television camera. That was a first, folks. It would be akin, if you were in the United Kingdom, it would be akin to the Queen reading her speech for the opening of Parliament and then the Speaker of the House of Commons literally ripping it up right in front of her face. It's that kind of egregious violation of decorum and protocol and the seriousness of that act that we're talking about here. Now, why am I concentrating on this? I'm concentrating on it because, as everybody can see now, I think clearly, America is badly, badly culturally divided. This is not political. This is cultural. And I've been saying this privately to my website members in some vid chats and so on. The 2 political parties no longer represent a political position or a policy position. They now represent 2 very different cultures and 2 very different cosmologies. It's very important for people to understand this. So as a result of that phenomenon, if I'm analyzing things correctly, as a result of that specific phenomenon, what do you see going on in America? Well, we saw the Virginia protests where counties in Virginia, the majority of the counties in the state of Virginia, I should say Commonwealth of Virginia, were protesting the governor and the Democratic state legislature's plans to severely regulate guns in that state. And then something else happened in connection with that event. The governor of West Virginia, which I thought was a tremendous irony, invited those counties in Virginia to join the state of West Virginia. In other words, to secede from Virginia and join the state of West Virginia. Now, if you know American history, Virginia and West Virginia used to be just Virginia, okay? And West Virginia's counties that formed the state of West Virginia seceded from Virginia during the Civil War, and this was recognized by Congress. So in other words, what the governor of West Virginia was doing was basically inviting the rest of Virginia to join West Virginia, leave Richmond in the hands of the Democrats, and basically you would have had Virginia reconstituted in more or less its original shape. But that's another example. In California, You have a group of people outside of the San Fran freak show, LA, scary mental part of the state that want the rest of the state, the sane part of the state, to secede from California. Then what else have you seen? Well, you've seen a couple years ago the state of Texas approving its own bullion depository, and it was joined a few months later by Utah. You've seen several states in the country, Montana, I think Arizona has done this, passing state resolutions in their state legislatures to recognize constitutional money, in other words, specie or bullion, as being the form of legal tender in the country. So, in other words, if you wrap all of these things together, and incidentally, I want to mention another final thing, and that was the state of Missouri, which a few months ago, for those of you outside the United States, the state of Missouri passed a state law whereby if the federal government should ever pass a gun ban, that no officer of the state of Missouri was obligated to fulfill that, as any such law would be unconstitutional. So in other words, what you really see here, folks, I think is something very interesting, and it's very frightening. What you're seeing are states pushing back against this widening cultural gulf, and they're pushing back, I think, kind of in a preemptive manner against the day that the current loony left gets back into power and takes the country down a road that they do not wish to go. I think this is now clear, and that more and more states are going to start doing stuff like this. So in other words, the center, the federal government is, as we've seen, it's become so corrupt, it's so unwieldy, and the policies coming out of Swampington are so bad that they are, Trump notwithstanding, they are taking steps for the long term. And I suspect, if I'm correct, I may be completely wacko and off the end of my twig of speculation, which I often am. But I think what you're seeing is a pattern is emerging now where states are taking matters into their own hands. And folks, I can only guess that this is going to grow unless this radical leftist thing that we see going on in a certain political party in this country is not neutralized, and that party manages to correct itself and right itself. I think this type of thing is only going to grow. And that's what worries me. In other words, we're back to what I said initially. We're back to what I think is happening now with the two political parties. They're no longer political parties in any conventional sense. They now represent two very different cultures and two very different cosmologies. So how all of this is going to play out in the future, I think you're watching one of the ways it's beginning to play out, and that's through states taking action on their own. And I'm not restricting this simply to states in the American heartland. I think you're going to see similar things being done by the more liberal states, California, New York, and so on, or at least, as we saw in Virginia, the liberal part of a state wanting to impose its will on the rest of the state. And I think you're going to see some secessionist talk out of that group of people as well. So anyway, that's what I think is going on here, folks. And incidentally, there is a similar move kind of happening in Germany. If you're watching Germany, the state or lender governments in Germany are now beginning to form coalitions with the Alternative for Deutschland party, and that wall of coalitions being formed with that party is now broken. So Merkel is in trouble. So this is something that appears not to be restricted just to the United States. We've seen or heard talk of provinces seceding in Canada, particularly in Western Canada, out from under the nutty thumb of Prime Minister Trudeau. But anyway, something to watch going on here, folks. Reminder, tomorrow we do have a vid chat that will be scheduled for 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time. As always, I'll be in the room early for a little pre-chat. I already have a few questions from some people, so get your questions in if you want to join the vid chat. There will be no vid chat next weekend because I will be having company, and then the weekend following that, there will be a vid chat. So tomorrow is a vid chat, and then 2 weeks later, another vid chat. So hope to see everybody there. Bye-bye, and God bless.